Did you know that some people don't use online marketplaces to sell items at all? They use them to choose victims? This is something that happened to me 2 years ago, and even now, writing it down makes my hands shake. I've replayed that night in my head more times than I can count, wondering how close I came to never making it home. It started like any other night, boring, uneventful, completely normal. I was lying in bed around 11:30 p.m., scrolling through a marketplace app on my phone. I wasn't looking for anything specific. I had a habit of browsing listings late at night when I couldn't sleep. Old electronics, furniture, random junk people were desperate to get rid of. That's when I saw the listing. A brand new gaming console, still sealed in the box, listed for less than half its retail price. At first I assumed it was a scam, but the photos looked real. The box had slight creases, like it had been sitting somewhere for a while. The seller's profile showed a normal-looking guy, generic smile, neutral background, nothing strange. His account was a few years old, and he had a handful of other listings marked as sold. Everything looked legitimate. I messaged him, not expecting a response. He replied immediately. No greeting. No. Is this still available? Exchange. Just a short sentence. Yes. Pick up only. Tonight or tomorrow night. Something about that made my stomach tighten. Most sellers want daytime meetups. Public places. This guy wanted nighttime, specifically nighttime. I asked if we could meet during the day. He didn't respond for almost 5 minutes. Then another message came in. Night is better. Less people. I should have stopped right there. But greed has a way of quieting your instincts. The price was too good. I convinced myself I was being paranoid. People work odd hours. People don't want crowds. There were 100 reasonable explanations. I told him I could come the next night around 8:30. He sent me the address immediately. No questions. No confirmation. No hesitation. That should have been my second warning. The next evening, the uneasiness followed me the entire drive. I kept checking the address on my phone, half expecting it to change or disappear. It led me to an older apartment complex on the edge of town, not abandoned, but not well maintained either. The kind of place where the paint peels off the railings and the lights don't fully work. The parking lot was mostly empty. That was the third warning. I sat in my car for a moment, engine running, debating whether to leave. I even typed out a message saying I'd changed my mind. Before I could send it, another message popped up from him. I see you. My heart jumped. I looked up from my phone, scanning the parking lot. I didn't see anyone. No movement. No lights turning on. Just silence. I typed back, asking where he was. Another message came instantly. Second floor. Door is open. I locked my car. I don't know why I didn't leave. Maybe pride. Maybe denial. Maybe that stupid belief that bad things only happen to other people. I got out and walked toward the building. The front door didn't close properly. It creaked as I pushed it open, echoing through the hallway. The smell inside hit me immediately. Dust, mold, and something faintly metallic. The hallway lights flickered, leaving parts of the corridor in shadow. Every step I took felt louder than it should have. Second floor. The stairwell was narrow, and the handrail was sticky, like it hadn't been cleaned in years. Halfway up, I heard something above me. Footsteps. They stopped the moment I did. I waited. Nothing. When I reached the second floor, I saw the apartment. The door was open, just like he said. The light inside was on. I stood there for a full minute, heart pounding, listening. I didn't hear a TV. No music. No voices. Just silence. I knocked anyway. The knock echoed inside the apartment, hollow and empty sounding. Then I heard movement. Slow footsteps. Not rushed. Not surprised. The kind of footsteps that knew I was already there. The man stepped into view. He looked normal, painfully normal. Late 30s maybe. Clean clothes. calm expression. He smiled slightly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You're here for the console," he said. I nodded. He stepped aside without another word. I walked in. The apartment was almost completely empty. No couch. No chairs. No TV. Just bare walls and a single folding table in the center of the room. On the table was the console, still sealed. The air inside felt thick, like it hadn't circulated in a long time. The kind of air that makes you want to leave immediately. As I stepped further inside, I noticed something else. The windows were covered. Not with curtains, with black plastic, taped tightly around the edges. I asked him about it. He smiled again. Privacy. I picked up the box, pretending to inspect it. My hands were shaking, and I was trying hard not to show it. That's when I heard the door close. Then the sound that made my stomach drop. Click. The lock. I turned around slowly. He was standing between me and the door. Not blocking it aggressively, just positioned there casually, like it was the most natural place for him to stand. "Is something wrong?" he asked. I told him I'd changed my mind. I said I didn't need it anymore. I tried to laugh it off. He didn't move. Instead, he said something that still makes my blood run cold. "Most people say that." I asked him to unlock the door. He tilted his head slightly, like he was considering it. Then he said, "You came all this way." That's when I noticed the hallway behind him. There was another door in the apartment. A bedroom door. It was slightly open, and the light inside was off. I could hear something coming from that room. Breathing. Slow. Steady. Not his. In that moment, everything clicked. This apartment wasn't a home. It was a setup. The listing. The price. The insistence on nighttime. It wasn't about selling anything. I asked him who else was there. He smiled wider. "You're asking too many questions." My body went cold. My instincts were screaming louder than they ever had in my life. I dropped the box. The sound echoed loudly in the empty room. For a split second, his attention shifted downward. That's all I needed. I shoved him as hard as I could and lunged for the door. He grabbed my jacket, ripping it, but I twisted free, unlocked the door, and ran. I didn't stop running. Down the hallway. Down the stairs. Out the front door. I could hear shouting behind me. Not words, just angry noise. I reached my car, jumped inside, locked the doors, and peeled out of the parking lot so fast my tires screeched. I didn't stop driving until I reached a busy main road. My hands were shaking so badly I had to pull over. When I got home, I checked the app. The listing was gone. The seller's account no longer existed. I reported everything to the police. They went to the apartment the next day. No one answered. Inside, the apartment was empty. No console. No furniture. No black plastic on the windows. Like no one had ever been there at all. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd hesitated for even one more second. Sometimes I think about the breathing I heard behind that door, and who it belonged to. And sometimes, late at night, when my phone buzzes with a marketplace notification, I don't open it. Did you know that sometimes the most dangerous part of selling something online isn't the meeting itself? It's what happens after the buyer leaves. This is something that happened to me, and for a long time I didn't even realize I was in danger. That's the worst part about it. There were no sudden scares at first. No immediate threats. Just a slow, quiet feeling that something was wrong, and by the time I understood what was happening, it was already too late. The listing. It started with something completely harmless. I was moving apartments and needed to get rid of a few things quickly. Old furniture. Kitchen items. A small desk I didn't want to haul to my new place. I'd sold things online plenty of times before and never had an issue. This time, I listed a used office chair. Nothing special. No sentimental value. Just something cheap and practical. Within an hour, I got a message. The buyer was polite. Too polite, actually. Full sentences. Proper punctuation. He asked a lot of questions, not just about the chair, but about when I'd be home, whether I lived alone, and how heavy the chair was. I brushed it off as normal curiosity. He offered full price and asked to pick it up that same evening. I agreed. I told him my address. That was my first mistake. He arrived exactly on time. I remember noticing his car first, parked across the street instead of directly in front of my building. That struck me as odd, but I didn't think much of it. He got out slowly, like he wasn't in a hurry at all. The first thing I noticed was how calm he was. Not friendly. Not nervous. Just observant. He looked around before looking at me. We exchanged a few words, and I brought the chair outside. He barely glanced at it before handing me the cash. Instead of loading it immediately, he started asking questions. How long I'd lived there. Whether the neighbors were usually home. If parking was always this quiet. Each question felt slightly off, but none of them were threatening on their own. Finally, he loaded the chair into his car. Before leaving, he looked at my apartment door and said, "Nice place. You picked a good spot." Then he drove away. I closed the door and didn't think about him again. At least, not that night. The next morning, I woke up to a notification. A message from the Marketplace app. From him. "Thanks again. Chair fits perfectly." That was normal. But then another message came in. "You were right. It is quiet there." I stared at my phone longer than I should have. I didn't respond. A few minutes later, another message appeared. "Do you live there alone?" I blocked him. I told myself I was overreacting. Over the next few days, I started noticing small things. My doormat would be slightly out of place when I got home. The hallway lights outside my apartment were sometimes already on. My trash bin lid was open when I knew I'd closed it. None of it was dramatic. None of it was enough to prove anything. But the feeling never went away. One evening, while doing dishes, I looked out my window and saw a car parked across the street. The same spot. The same angle. I couldn't see the driver. When I looked again 10 minutes later, it was gone. A week passed without messages. I started to relax. Then late one night my phone buzzed. A new Marketplace message. From a different account. "Hey, I'm interested in the desk you listed." I hadn't listed a desk. My stomach dropped. Another message followed. "I think I bought something from you before." I didn't reply. Instead, I checked the profile. No photo. Brand new account. No listings. Then another message came in. "You didn't like the chair?" I felt sick. That's when it hit me. He hadn't stopped watching. He knew what items I owned. He knew when I was home. He knew my routine. I started sleeping with my bedroom door locked. I stopped turning lights on at night. Every sound outside made my heart race. It was just after midnight when I heard it. A soft knock. Not loud. Not urgent. Polite. I froze. The knock came again. I didn't move. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow. Measured. Stopping right outside my door. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message. "I know you're home." I called the police. I whispered my address. I told them someone was outside my door. They told me to stay quiet. The footsteps didn't leave. Instead, I heard something else. Breathing. Right on the other side of the door. When the police arrived, the hallway was empty. But they found him. Sitting in his car across the street. The same car. The same spot. Inside his vehicle, they found printed photos. Of my building. My window. My door. He told police he just liked to watch. I moved out 2 weeks later, changed my number, deleted my marketplace account, stopped selling anything online. Sometimes I still think about how easily it started. A chair, a message, a stranger. And I wonder how many other sellers never realized someone was watching them. Until it was too late. Did you know that sometimes the most dangerous part of meeting a stranger from an online marketplace isn't the meeting itself? It's the moment you believe everything is already over? This happened to me a few years ago, and it completely changed the way I see online selling. Even now, I still check my locks more times than I need to. I still look out the window whenever a car slows down near my house. Because once, a simple marketplace meetup didn't just go wrong. It let them inside my home. I was selling a used refrigerator. It was bulky, heavy, and something I didn't want to move to my new place. I priced it cheap just to get rid of it quickly. Within a day, I received several messages, but one buyer stood out. He was polite, direct, said he could pick it up himself. He asked a few normal questions about size and condition, then one that stuck with me. Will anyone else be home when I come? I told him my roommate would be out for the evening. He replied almost instantly. Perfect. I'll bring help. At the time, that made sense. The fridge was heavy. I gave him my address. That was the mistake that started everything. They showed up right on time. 2 men. Not one. I remember feeling slightly annoyed they hadn't mentioned there would be 2 of them, but again, I ignored that feeling. People bring friends for heavy lifting. They parked their van a little farther down the street instead of directly in front of the house. One of them stayed near the vehicle while the other approached me. The man closest to me smiled a lot. Too much. He looked past me, into my house, before even greeting me. Nice place, he said. Easy access. Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. I led them inside to the kitchen. The other man finally came in, quietly closing the front door behind him. I noticed it, but didn't think much of it at the time. They didn't talk much while moving the fridge. Instead, they looked around. At the hallway. At the staircase. At the doors. One of them asked casually, "How long you been living here?" I answered. Another question followed. "Neighbors close by?" I told him yes, hoping it would reassure me more than them. They finished loading the fridge into the van. The smiling one handed me the cash. "Pleasure doing business," he said. I locked the door behind them and felt relief wash over me. I thought it was done. That night, I noticed the back door wasn't locked. I knew I always locked it. I told myself I must have forgotten. Later, while lying in bed, I heard a sound downstairs. A soft thump. Then silence. I froze, listening. Nothing else happened. I didn't sleep much that night. The next evening, my roommate was still gone. I was alone again. Around 9 p.m., there was a knock on the door. I looked through the peephole. It was one of the men. The smiling one. He looked different now. Serious. Focused. He said they'd forgotten something inside during the pickup. I told him I hadn't seen anything. He smiled again. "Can I just check real quick?" I opened the door a few inches. That was all he needed. He pushed the door hard, knocking me backward. The second man was already there. They moved fast. Too fast. One of them grabbed my arms while the other locked the door. They didn't yell. They didn't threaten. They moved like this wasn't their first time. One of them said calmly, "Relax. We just need time." That sentence still terrifies me more than any scream could. They weren't there to steal electronics. They weren't there for money. They were there because they already knew the layout of my house. They knew I lived alone that night. They knew which doors locked, which ones didn't. I realized then that the refrigerator was never the reason they came. It was reconnaissance. While they argued quietly about something, I still don't know what, their grip loosened just enough. I slammed my heel down on one man's foot and twisted free. I ran. I don't remember screaming, but neighbors later said they heard me. I ran out the front door barefoot, down the street, banging on the first door I saw. Lights turned on. Someone opened the door. The men were gone by the time police arrived. The police told me the van had stolen plates. The men were never identified. They said it was likely they'd done this before. That my listing had simply made me visible. I moved shortly after. I changed my routines. I stopped selling large items online altogether. People think danger announces itself. It doesn't. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it pays in cash. Sometimes it helps you carry something heavy out of your house. And sometimes it comes back.